Welcome back to the Willa Wanders YouTube channel. I said 2025 was going to be a year of YouTube for me. Maybe it'll go on longer than that. We'll see how it goes. But I'm back today with another video. And this time I'm going to be talking about one of my absolute favorite subjects, which is adding your hand lettering into your art journals. So for whatever reason that I cannot explain, maybe it's because I've always loved hand lettering, I do not feel like an art journal or an art journal page is complete if it doesn't have words on it. And the easiest way, the quickest way for me to add words is if I just do it myself. There's a lot of ways to add words and quotes to journals, and I like all of the ways. But oftentimes when I'm working in my art journal, I'm looking for just a quick way to add lettering. And the important thing about this, and what I've discovered over the last 6 years of doing art journaling, is that most people do seem to be very afraid of adding their own letters into their art journals. And so I did create a course called Love Your Imperfect Lettering, and it's a wonderful course. It basically takes you from the place where you're at now to the place where you have 100% confidence to just go into your journal and add lettering. So this video is going to be my top 5 tips that I have learned along the way for doing your own lettering in your beloved journals. People do feel afraid that they're going to do something that's going to mess their journal up, and that's what prevents them from going for it. And so, yeah, so that's what this video is going to be about. I should mention that I am currently working in a journal that I am making in Fodder School 4. The instructor this month in Fodder School 4 is Liz Constable from Book Arts Studios or Book Arts Studios. I'll put a link below, and yeah, I'll put links to Fodder School and Book Arts Studios to Liz. She's wonderful. She's an amazing teacher, and she's teaching us to do a book. And yeah, and you know, everyone gets to go in their own direction. My direction sort of always leads me down this path of adding quotes to my journals. And here is me telling you the top 5 tips that I have about doing just that. So my first tip is stop thinking about writing in your journal as handwriting. Now, I'm not here to be the handwriting police. If you want to use your own handwriting in your journal, you can absolutely do that by all means. If you want to sort of do a semic writing, this is not a video about a semic writing. I love a semic writing. I'm talking about when you're writing something that is deeply meaningful to you and that you're going to want to go back to later and look at and read and have a pleasant experience looking at it. I want to prevent you from having that feeling like, ugh, I wish I hadn't ruined my art journal page, my beautiful art, with my letters. So the first thing to recognize, again, is I'm not talking about using your own handwriting. Here is my handwriting. It's not journal worthy. I would not write with my own handwriting in my journal. So can you see the difference? This is fun, this feels artistic, this feels intentional, versus I'm just taking notes, okay? I'm not just taking notes in my journals. I am creating art. That's how I journal. That's just me. Again, I don't want to be the lettering police. By all means, if you want to write in your journal with your handwriting, that is totally a beautiful thing. I would never dissuade you from doing that. I'm just here if you're interested in making it something elevated for yourself. So that's my first tip is I'm not teaching people how to use their handwriting. I'm teaching people how to use the very old, very tried and true techniques of developing lettering, hand lettering for your art journal. So the other thing about it being hand lettering and not being handwriting is that it's a slow process. So when I decide that I want to write something in my journal, I'm not thinking, oh, this is going to be the fastest way to get this in the journal. So you just have to be ready to slow down, because writing something out using hand lettering is a meditative process in and of itself. It's a point at which we can slow down, we can contemplate what we're writing, and we can be in that moment. It is very much a practice that once you nail it, you are going to go right into flow state as soon as you start lettering. That's probably why I'm so drawn to it. Okay, so that's tip number one, is let go of the idea that you're using your handwriting and that this is handwriting. It's not handwriting, it's hand lettering, two different things. The second tip is going to be about using the quote unquote right pens for your journaling. So not all pens are going to be fun to actually do hand lettering in a journal. And there are certain pens that are wonderful for it. And I'm going to talk about some of them here on this video. We're going to get right into it with the pens. So I'm going to bring out a few of the different pens that I have really loved over the years. And this doesn't mean that this is some kind of complete thing. Like, there's probably lots of other pens that would work as well, but this is sort of just my current favorites. So my two, I would say, most go-to, because they're black and they're white, are gonna be the white Uniball Signo UM-153 gel pen. So this is made by Uniball. It's available, as far as I know, everywhere in the world. I purchased them in bulk on Amazon, usually in packs of 10. My number one tip, really my only tip for these, is that once you begin using it, it dries out within a few weeks. So luckily they're not very expensive, but once you start using it, you're going to want to use it up, or you're going to end up having to toss it. So the way that I deal with this is I just keep as few of them at a time on my art table as I humanly can. So you can actually see I've used up both of these, and it's time to toss them. So just the other day, like literally 2 days ago, when I was doing a lot of lettering in my project, my current project, I broke open a brand new one. And so this is the point. I keep a little basket of pens right on my desk, and I keep the current one, the one that has the white paint flowing out of it, right there at the ready, so that I'm always having an easy time with it. Once I start having a difficult time with it, I know that it's drying out and that I'm on sort of a limited time frame that it's going to be usable. I might be able to get a little bit more use out of it, but then, you know, when I'm like, oh, this is just frustrating, then stop. Don't even try to keep using it. Just open up a fresh one and toss away the one that's not working. This is painful for people. Sometimes you're going to toss one out that is maybe half full. But here is the upside. You want this to be a pleasant experience. And there is no other white pen on the market that I'm aware of that is as easy to use and consistent as the Uniball Signo UM-153. I have tried the small Posca white pen. I do not have great success with it. And I have also tried the Jelly Roll white pens, and I also do not have success with those. Now, that doesn't mean I don't love Jelly Roll pens, because I absolutely do, but I find that the Uniball is much more opaque than the Jelly Roll in the white color, basically only. And so this is my tried and true white pen. The other thing I want to mention is my tried and true black pens, and that is the Uniball Air. So I don't know if it's a coincidence or what, but they're both Uniball. So the Uniball Air micro pens, they do come in, I believe, 2 different point sizes. Like, don't quote me, but maybe a 0.5 and a 0.7, something like that. The Uniball Air micro is just a very consistent pen for writing on anything. And that is what you're looking for when you're looking for pens for your art journaling. You're looking for pens that release their ink onto your page no matter what is on your page. Because when you're doing art journaling, you just never know what the surface of the page is going to be like. So you want ones that consistently make this easy for you. So I'm always trying out other pens, and there are other pens that are good, but I'm not going to go into details about them. I do have a blog post where I go into details about other pens, but the point in this video is for me to just tell you, you got to find your tried and true pens, and yours may not be mine, but you're going to want to, the number one thing you're going to want to ask yourself is, does this pen release ink on a lot of different surfaces, if not all of them? And am I getting the look that I want? But it's got to release. That's a key thing. A lot of pens won't even release ink on mixed media art surfaces. So the other pens that are beloved, which I'm a huge fan of, even though not in the small white one, but in every other color and every other size, are the Posca paint pens. These are fabulous. I don't recommend buying these in every color. I recommend trying to go, if you can, to a big art store, like a flagship type art store, where they sell Poscas individually, and purchasing just the colors that you love, because there's sort of nothing sadder than buying like one of those big rainbow packs, but only using 5 of the colors, and then the other 25 colors, you're like, I don't even like those colors. So those pens just sit there and they don't get used. With Posca, that's how it is. You're going to have your favorite colors, and you're going to have colors that do not get used. So I highly recommend collecting these in your favorite colors. And probably the size that I used the most was this one, which is this size. So this is the PC-5M bullet shaped. And this is great for putting bold quotes in journals. And then once it's dry, you can go back in with either your Uniball Signo white gel pen or the Uniball Air Micro, and you can put an outline, and a very imperfect outline. It just makes it totally pop off all pages. So I love those. And then more recently, I was turned on to the variety of, let's see, these are called Souffle, but that's not the brand name. These are the jelly rolls made by Sakura. And I did buy these because you really can't get them. Well, that might not be true. I don't know if you can get these individually. You might be able to at like a Michael's or something like that. But I did buy the complete packs, and I have completely fallen in love with these. These are fantastic pens for art journalers. I know everybody knows this, but sometimes somebody's going to see a video who's pretty new to this, and they're going to be like, oh, actually, I'm not familiar with the, what are they called? The, I can't even remember the brand. The jelly rolls. Okay, now jelly rolls come in all different types. They have glaze, they have souffle. Let's see, this one is called Moonlight. There's just all these different, like they have different shimmers and things like that. And I find that they all work really well, and I just pick them by the color and not really the finish. So this is the kind of thing where you could go on Amazon and start buying packs of them. Once I started buying them, I was sort of like, oh my gosh, I want them all, which is why you can see that I have like this giant amount of them. Oh, here's another white gel pen, half started. Okay, I'm going to put that in there. So, oh, here's another one. Oh boy, I have too many of them. Oh boy. Okay. Oh, here's another one. Don't do what I did and put them away where you can't see them. Oh my Lord. Okay, look at that. I have so many of them. These are probably all dried up, and I started putting them in with these and then completely forgot about them. That is not, don't do what I did. You don't want to forget about the ones that you started. So now I have to see if any of these work. Okay, so that was tip number 2, which is focus on the pens, find the ones that you love. Point number 3 has to do with planning. So I sort of vacillate when I'm working in a journal between doing very, very well planned lettering and sort of off the cuff, I'm just going in. So the key point with this is you have to be aware and noticing about where you want your letters to be placed. I'm not typically doing stream of consciousness when I'm doing this. I'm typically writing from a quote that I found online and saved, and I want to write that quote out. So when I'm deciding where I want to put a quote and how I want to put it in, the kind of first thing I'm thinking about is, how is this quote going to fit within the context of this page? And if I believe I can actually fit the quote onto the page, then I move on to the next question, which is, do I want it to be right justified, left justified, or center justified? And I do all three things, but I would say I lean toward left justified because that's the easiest and it is quicker. So this is something where it's left justified. All of the letters are lining up with the left side of the words or the left side of the lines, and then they're projecting to the right, and I don't care if there's any kind of evenness on the right side. So it's much easier when I can anchor everything over to the left. Although if I was lettering on this page, I know just based on what this page looks like, I would anchor my letters over to the right. The other way to do it is to have everything emanate off of a center point, which is absolutely doable. And I go through all of this in my course, Love Your Imperfect Letters. So I think it's pretty obvious how to anchor to the left. You just start writing from the left. Now, it's probably good for me to mention at this point that I allow myself to be very imperfect with this. Imperfect. Not perfect. And that means that if I start writing and I end up with a half of a word, I'm okay to just continue with the other half of the word on the next line, even if it's not the perfect break point for a hyphen. The reason why is because these are my journals, and I have decided many years ago that I am going to do everything imperfectly, and I would rather do it than not do it. So I don't worry about where a word breaks. I just worry about getting the idea on the paper in a way that I like the letters. I'm not so much worried about, oh, I have half a word there, but then it continues over there. Now, for the most part, it's not an issue, but occasionally there'll be like a really weird break, but I don't care. So, okay, so left justifying, that's easy. Right justifying, I will show you how I would right justify. Let's see, I'm going to need a quote. Okay, here is one. Perfect. Okay, so let's analyze this page, or these two pages, this spread. So here I am just in cursive lettering, putting in the date in this spot that just happened to be perfect for the date. And then I'm like, okay, there is this shape here, and I can use the shape as my left justification. And then there was more that I wanted to say. So I was like, okay, I'm going to use the right justification there. And then over here, I was like, oh, this is so perfect. I love when there's a line in the design and I can get something in there that follows the line. That's also pretty easy if I've got something. I could have followed this line and put a quote following around that shape. Okay, but I want to talk about this. So I've got some scrap paper and a pen, and you can either do this by mapping it out, but you often don't have to if the quote is easy. If it's a lot of words and you're going to have a lot of words, if you're going to have a lot of words on your page, you definitely want to use scrap paper. In this case, you really could just go in, but what I do is I write out the words just in my messy handwriting. Okay. And then when I actually do the lettering, I'm going to start with the first word and start with the last letter. So I am going to show you how this would work in real life. So if I wanted to put the words "hope is not a strategy" right here, I would start wherever I wanted to start with the E. So you can see how slowly I'm going. Okay, then I'm going to do the P. So do you see that this is not me writing something like with handwriting? Every single letter is a little drawing. You could think of it like a drawing or like a doodle. And how you want your letters to look, that's the subject of my course, Love Your Imperfect Lettering. Okay. Is. So now I'm going to go to the second line. I'm going to start with the last letter and then put in that letter. So positioning in your journal is like a huge, huge part of hand lettering into your journal. And I'm drawing the letters on. Now, as I'm doing this, everything that I'm doing is a decision. I am at one with these letters. And that's what I take you through in the course, is all of how you develop your lettering style and a process of learning how to do this. So there you go. That's positioned. I like where it's positioned. I'm very happy with that. Okay. So that is how I would write Justify Anything. Now, a lot of times I've got many words in one line, and then you just leave a space and you just keep going. You're writing backwards, essentially. Okay, so that was tip number 3. Tip number 3 is plan, plan, plan. Plan before you start writing. Not saying every time you need to plan, but a lot of times it does require planning. It's not just me going in rando on the page. I've thought about it. I've positioned in my mind if I need to work it out on paper, but it's planned out ahead of time. Okay, my next tip about lettering is about making it fun. And I've got, like I said, a whole course on hand lettering. There are so many ways to make it fun, but one of the easiest ways to go from handwriting to hand lettering is to mix up capital letters and lowercase letters. So hope is not a strategy. All capital letters. Okay, pretty boring. Now, let's say I want to mix it up. I'm mixing up sizes. I'm mixing up lowercase and uppercase. I'm going to also mix up, sometimes with the E, I'll put the middle part of the E high. Sometimes I'll put it low. Whoops. I just made a mistake. Okay. Anyway, pretend I put a G there. So making it fun, mixing things up. There's a million ways to make lettering fun, but lettering in a journal, to me, it just screams, make it fun. Okay. The last tip that I have, my fifth most favorite tip, is to find different ways that you can apply your letters onto your journal pages. So it isn't always going in directly with a pen on a journal page. That is like the higher level of doing the lettering. There's easier ways of doing the lettering that involve things like keeping scrap little pieces of fodder on your desk. And when you hear a quote that you love, okay, here's a quote. You tried to kill me, but you made me stronger. If you've got scrap fodder, okay, here's a piece of scrap fodder on my desk. Oftentimes I have small pieces of fodder. So let's say you've got just scraps of paper hanging around and you're listening to a podcast as you're happily working in your art journal, and you hear this quote and you're like, oh my gosh, I would love to use that quote in a journal. The easiest thing to do is just jot it on a scrap of collage fodder, okay? And let's say I want to do this one. You tried to kill me, but you made me stronger, and I've got this piece of paper, and I'm like, okay, am I going to do it vertically or horizontally? So I think I'm going to go vertical, and I'm just going to write it on here. Again, all the tips and tricks, slowly, not my handwriting, my lettering, mixing up the uppercase and lowercase. And I'm just going to go for this. I'm sort of centering it, but again, this is higher level. So if I really wanted to make this perfect on here, I would use a whole different technique of writing it out and centering it by hand and everything. But I'm just going to go in and do this because I don't care. I'm not looking for the most perfect thing. Okay, so I'm down to the last word. I do really want it to be centered. I'm loving how this looks. So I'm thinking about the word stronger. I don't want to totally screw it up and have it all the way over to the right or all the way over to the left. So this is what I'm going to do. Stronger. There are 8 letters in the word stronger. 8 divided by 2 is 4. STRONGER. So the center is here. I'm going to go in with NGER. STRORTS. So it's not perfectly centered, but it's literally looking amazing to me. So make it easier on yourself. have pieces of scrap paper around. You hear something, then you're journaling and you're like, hey, I want to add a quote to this page. And look at that. You have the cutest thing. Is it dark? Yes, it's dark. Is it real? Yes, it's real. Okay? It's very, very real. Art is about reality. It's not about a fantasy world, living in a fantasy all the time. Bad stuff is happening. That looks really good there. Okay, I'm going to get some glue. I'm going to glue that in there. There's my quote. Okay, there you have it. Those are my top 5 tips for how to add your imperfect lettering to your art journaling. And I hope you check out my course, Love Your Imperfect Letters, at willawanders.com. And I hope you've enjoyed this YouTube video. I will see you next time. Bye-bye.